week ago, Evelyn sat by her window, her legs heavy with silence. They were swollen, stiff, and unresponsive, like anchors tied to her spirit. Simply rising from her chair felt like dragging the weight of forgotten years. Each step was slow, deliberate. Her sleep was fractured, and the dull ache in her limbs lingered like an old sorrow that refused to release its grip. This was not an isolated experience. No, it is something many people beyond 60 carry with them each day, quietly, often without complaint. They learn to live with the discomfort, adapt to the fatigue, and call it aging. But within that resignation lies a silent hope that there might still be something gentle, something honest that can ease the burden. Evelyn's story reminds us of that hope, because just 7 days after making a small change, something so simple, so overlooked, her body responded. Her legs felt lighter, her pain softened, and the stiffness gave way to motion. She slept more deeply, and in the early morning she found herself walking again, not from obligation, but from quiet joy, not from fear of falling, but with trust in her own rhythm. And what changed was not a new prescription, nor a trip to a clinic. It wasn't a machine or a supplement, it was an oil. A small, familiar bottle resting quietly in the back of her kitchen cabinet. A bottle of rosemary oil, an ancient remedy, often forgotten in the modern world of quick fixes and pills, but this was different. No side effects, no waiting lists, no stress. What unfolded over the course of a week felt less like treatment and more like returning to something lost, a connection, a ritual, a breath. This story is not just for Evelyn. It is for anyone whose legs have become strangers. For those who feel the heaviness of time, the pressure of swelling, or the fatigue that makes the ground feel farther away. You are not alone, and you are not powerless. Relief does not always begin in grand gestures. Sometimes it begins with something as small and profound as a drop of oil on your skin. Sometimes healing begins with attention, with listening, with being still enough to feel. In the pages ahead, I will walk with you step by step as we explore how to use this oil, what to expect in the days that follow, and how 3 natural combinations can deepen the experience even further. But first, let us pause. Let us understand where this weight comes from, why the legs after 60 begin to whisper their discomfort. To understand the pain is to meet it with compassion. Evelyn did not wake up one morning with heavy legs. The body rarely shouts first. It speaks softly, slowly. At first, there was just a mild ache behind her knees after walking to the mailbox. A whisper. Then, by evening, she noticed her ankles swelling. Even on days she barely moved. A quiet warning. When she bent to water her plants, her calves cramped. She brushed it off. But these moments accumulated. They grew roots. By the time she turned 72, even rising from her recliner felt like scaling a hill she did not choose to climb. Like many women her age, Evelyn assumed this was simply part of getting older. But that assumption blinded her to the signals her body had been sending for years. Signals that her inner flow, her circulation, had slowed. The vessels that once moved blood with ease had become narrower, stiffer. Blood no longer flowed freely, not down into the legs and not back up toward the heart. Her tissues were deprived of oxygen, of nutrients, of vitality. That is why her legs felt so weak, so heavy, like they were no longer hers. At the same time, fluid began to accumulate. The systems designed to remove excess, her kidneys, her lymph nodes, had become less efficient. And gravity, relentless and patient, drew that fluid to her feet. The swelling wasn't merely cosmetic. It made walking harder. It made balance uncertain. It made sleep restless and uneasy. And as if this were not enough, another quiet shift occurred. Muscle loss. Without regular movement, the muscles in Evelyn's thighs and calves began to fade. Not out of laziness, but from disconnection, from stillness without awareness. and weaker muscles brought more pressure to her joints, and with that, a greater chance of falling. But let us be clear, this was not hopeless. Her body did not require miracles. It simply needed to be met where it was, with support, with consistency, with presence. That support came in the most ordinary of moments. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Evelyn was cleaning her pantry, an act she hadn't done in years. Behind jars of vinegar and a dusty bottle of oregano, her fingers touched glass. A forgotten bottle. She held it up to the light, rosemary oil. She had once bought it after reading about its calming effects on sore muscles. And then, as life does, she forgot. But that night, her legs ached again. Instead of reaching for her heating pad, she paused. She opened the bottle. She warmed a few drops between her palms and gently massaged it into her calves and thighs. The aroma rose, earthy, herbal, grounding. And in that moment, something shifted. Not a cure, not a miracle, just a quiet awakening, and the journey had begun. The scent was fresh, earthy, calming, and somehow ancient. It reminded me of walking through a mountain forest just after the rain, where everything feels alive and at peace. But what Evelyn experienced next was something no aroma alone could explain. Within minutes, she felt a gentle warmth rising beneath her skin. Not heat, not irritation, just a soft awakening, like her legs had been asleep for years and were now slowly stirring. That night, for the first time in weeks, she slept through. No cramps, no tossing, only rest. You see, rosemary oil may seem like a simple kitchen ingredient, but simplicity does not mean weakness. There is a reason this plant has been honored for generations across cultures by healers who listened not just to symptoms, but to the deeper rhythms of the body. Rosemary contains potent compounds, rosmarinic acid and antioxidants, that modern science now confirms can enhance circulation, calm inflamed tissues, and release tension in overworked muscles. But long before research gave it language, the Greeks and Romans were already massaging rosemary oil into tired legs, stiff joints, and aching feet after their long journeys on foot. What makes rosemary unique is not just what it contains, but how swiftly it speaks to the body. It stimulates peripheral circulation, encouraging blood to return to areas that have grown quiet, the legs, the ankles, the feet, and in doing so, it brings relief, not just from discomfort, but from the sensation of being cut off from your own vitality. And yes, it also reduces inflammation. When we sit too long or stand too long, the body holds fluid in the lower limbs. Swelling follows. Rosemary soothes this process naturally, gently. But perhaps even more important than its chemistry is the experience, the ritual it creates, the scent, the warmth, the act of slowing down. For Evelyn, it began as a massage, but it quickly became something deeper, a return, a reconnection. And if you are wondering how to receive the same shift she felt, it's not just about what she used, but how she used it. Let me guide you. The best time to apply rosemary oil is after a warm shower. In that moment, your skin is open, your pores receptive, your muscles softened by water and warmth. But if a shower is not possible, simply ensure your legs are clean and dry. That too is enough. Evelyn would begin by holding the bottle between her palms, not rushing, just letting the glass warm slightly in her hands. If it felt too cold, she would place it near a warm towel, giving it time to adjust. Then she would pour 5 or 6 drops into her hand, rub her palms together and pause. Just breathe. That breath, the first breath with the oil, was her cue. The herbal grounding aroma seemed to whisper, "Now is your time." And it was. She began at her ankles, small circles, gentle, steady strokes, upward, not hurried, not forceful, but firm and kind, up the calves, behind the knees, down the shins, then higher into the thighs, and on the thighs she slowed even more, long sweeping motions, like she was embracing her own body, not fixing it, not correcting it, just being with it. Each leg took about 5 to 7 minutes, but in those minutes, time itself seemed to shift. Evelyn breathed with the movement in through her nose, out through her mouth. Her touch and her breath moved as one. It became a kind of meditation, a sacred act in a noisy world. What worked best for her was doing this twice a day. Once in the morning to awaken her legs and greet the day with softness, and again at night to release everything the day had placed upon them, the pressure, the stillness, the strain. And after just 7 days, the shift was undeniable. So she didn't stop. She listened. Some days she applied the oil once, other times only at night. It never became a burden. It became a rhythm, like brushing her teeth or sipping warm tea before bed. But Evelyn didn't stop there. She found small additions that made the ritual even deeper. After the massage, she would elevate her legs, placing them on 2 pillows for just 15 minutes. This simple act helped her blood return to the heart more easily, relieving pressure and bringing calm. Other times, when her legs felt especially sore, she placed a warm towel over them after massaging. That moist heat allowed the oil to penetrate more deeply. It added comfort, presence, quiet. But in truth, the most powerful part of this practice wasn't the oil or the towels or even the massage itself. It was the pause. No phone, no television, no distractions, just Evelyn, her breath, her hands, her body finally being listened to. Because sometimes healing begins not with doing more, but with doing less, with being here, fully in this moment. And that, I believe, is where transformation begins. It was not the oil alone, nor the massage. What Evelyn remembered most clearly was the stillness. There was no phone buzzing, no television humming in the background, no chatter from outside, just her breath, her hands, her body, and in that quiet, something opened. When we slow down, even for a few minutes, something deep within us begins to realign. Not just the body, but the spirit. We begin to notice again, to feel, to reconnect with a presence that has always been there, waiting patiently beneath the surface. If you are wondering what happens after devoting yourself to this practice for 1 full week, allow me to walk you through what Evelyn experienced. Her journey was not extraordinary. It was simply honest. And it speaks to what so many others feel when they return to their own care. What surprised her most was not just how her legs responded, but how quickly they did. By the end of 7 days, the change was undeniable. And though every body is unique, the rhythm Evelyn discovered is one I've seen echoed in many others. The first day was not about relief, it was about arrival. She took the time to sit, to breathe, to touch her legs not out of frustration or judgment, but with care. That alone made her feel lighter, not necessarily in her body yet, but in her heart. It reminded her that she still mattered, that her body still mattered, and that was enough to begin. By the second day, something shifted. When she stood, the stiffness didn't grip her as tightly. And that night, the usual cramps that startled her awake were absent. She slept more deeply, more peacefully. A sense of ease returned to her rest. On the third day, a subtle surprise emerged. As she moved through her home, she noticed she wasn't shuffling. Her steps were smoother, more intentional. Her feet no longer dragged. The soreness remained, but the heaviness had begun to lift. By day 4, even her skin had changed. The dryness and dullness she had overlooked for years were now replaced by a soft, healthy glow. Her legs looked alive again, and as her legs felt more vibrant, so did she. Then came the 5th and 6th days. Confidence returned, not as a loud declaration, but as a quiet knowing. She walked taller. She didn't hesitate at curbs or stairs. She climbed without holding on to the railing. Her body felt trustworthy again. And on the 7th day, Evelyn paused. She looked down at her legs, not with criticism, but with gratitude. For the first time in years, they no longer felt like a burden. They felt like a part of her again, capable, connected, alive. This transformation is possible. And while rosemary oil was Evelyn's doorway, it is not the only path. Each of us carries different needs, different stories in our bodies. That's why others may find even greater support through different oils, ones aligned with their particular experiences. Let me introduce a few that I have seen serve others well. For those whose legs bruise easily, who feel tenderness after walking or standing too long, arnica oil may be your ally. Derived from a bright yellow flower long used in traditional European medicine, arnica is known to ease inflammation and soothe overworked muscles. Evelyn's friend, Helen, age 75, works most days at the local farmer's market. She spends hours standing, arranging vegetables, speaking with neighbors. Her knees often ached, especially after long days. When she began using arnica oil, the soreness behind her knees eased within days. It became part of her evening routine, a way to unwind, to release. Now, for those whose deepest challenge is sleep, especially when leg discomfort interferes, lavender oil is a gentle companion. Its fragrance alone has long been used to quiet the mind. But when applied with intention to the legs, lavender does more than relax muscles. It soothes overactive nerves. It slows the breath. It welcomes rest. Many I have guided keep a small bottle by their bedside. For those nights when the body won't settle, when the mind keeps turning, lavender becomes a bridge to stillness. And for those whose concern lies with circulation, heaviness, or visible veins, horse chestnut oil offers its strength. Used across Europe, particularly in Germany, this extract helps to tone blood vessel walls and reduce the pressure that gathers in the lower legs. If your ankles swell by evening or your legs feel as if they are surrendering under gravity, horse chestnut may be what your body has been quietly asking for. Now you need not choose only one. Some choose to blend the oils, just a few drops of each, into a gentle carrier like almond or olive oil. Others alternate them day by day, depending on how their legs feel when they wake. There is no single right way, because what matters most is listening. Your body is always speaking, not with words, but with sensation, rhythm, and response. These oils, they are not the answer. They are simply companions, gentle tools that help you hear more clearly. But no oil, no matter how pure or ancient, can carry the entire journey alone. It is only when ritual meets rhythm, when intention meets movement, that true change begins to take root. If you've ever wondered why some people feel results more quickly than others, the answer is not a secret, it is a practice. The oil plays its part, but your daily habits complete the transformation. Evelyn didn't become a new person overnight. She didn't join a gym. She didn't buy expensive supplements or track her meals in a notebook. What she did was much simpler and far more profound. She began to move, but not with urgency, not with punishment. She moved mindfully. Each morning, before the world asked anything of her, she walked her block. 10 quiet minutes, no speed, no goal, just her breath, the morning air, and a rhythm returning to her legs. That gentle motion became like a pump, waking her circulation, inviting blood to return where it had grown still, helping the oil she applied to do its work deeper and longer. Then came small movements, 3 to be exact. At her kitchen counter, she would rise onto her toes and slowly lower back down, strengthening the calves that had quietly weakened over the years. In her armchair, she stretched one leg at a time, waking her thighs with soft tension. And throughout the day, whenever she remembered, she circled her ankles. No sweat, no timer, just awareness. It took 5 minutes or less, but the impact was real. Her meals remained simple, but she invited new allies to the table. Foods that support blood flow naturally, garlic, turmeric, and berries. A little less salt in the evenings helped the swelling fade gently. Nothing extreme, just attention. And then there was rest. Each afternoon, Evelyn would pause. She laid back, legs gently elevated on 2 pillows. For 15 minutes, she breathed, not deeply, not deliberately, just present. That moment gave her veins a chance to reset, to recover. At night, she slipped a soft cushion under her ankles, a small gesture, but one that told her body, you are supported. These weren't grand changes, they were subtle. But like water shaping stone, their quiet repetition made all the difference. Naturally, as more people begin this journey, questions arise, and questions are a good thing. They mean we are paying attention. Let's take a moment to answer some of the most common ones, clearly and gently. The one I hear most often is this: Can I still use the oil if I have varicose veins? The answer is yes, but be soft. If your veins are visible or tender, avoid pressure. Do not press or knead. Use slow, upward strokes with light fingers. Let the movement speak of care, not force. After your massage, consider lifting your legs gently, propping them on a pillow or resting them up against a wall. This small act, done with quiet intention, can make a profound difference. It invites the blood to return, lightens the heaviness, and gives your body a moment of deep restoration. Often I'm asked, but what if I'm over 80? Will this still work for me? Yes, absolutely yes. Age does not silence the body's ability to respond. It does not erase your capacity to heal. It may take more time. The signals may be softer, but the response is still there, just beneath the surface, waiting for you to listen. I have seen men and women in their late 80s, even early 90s, find strength again, not just in their legs, but in their sense of self. Their balance improved, their steps steadied, and something else returned, something even more important than strength, a sense of connection, a sense of trust in their body. Others ask, is this only for women? Not at all. Circulation, stiffness, loss of muscle, these do not discriminate. They visit both men and women alike. In fact, many older men who had never considered massage before shared with me how surprised they were. Not only by the physical ease it brought, but by the emotional shift, a quiet softening, a reminder that care is not weakness, it is wisdom. Then comes the question, how long should I keep using the oil? There is no exact rule. Begin with 7 days, enough time to meet your body again, to notice, to listen, and after that, continue as it feels right. Some continue daily, others shift to a few times a week. For many, it becomes a nightly ritual, not a task, but a return. The answer lies in your own experience. Your body will whisper, it always does. And finally, what if I don't feel anything right away? Then pause, breathe, and stay consistent. If your legs have been calling for help for years, they may not let go of tension in just a few days. The knots of pain, the stories stored in your muscles, they unravel slowly. But that doesn't mean nothing is happening. Even the smallest shifts, less swelling, deeper sleep, easier steps are signs. They are the body's quiet way of saying, yes, I feel you. Keep going. And now, before we close, there is something else I want to offer you, not as advice, but as a reminder, something too many forget. Your legs have carried you. They have taken you through joy and loss, through early mornings and long nights, through days of celebration and days when simply standing was an act of courage. They have borne your weight without complaint for decades, and perhaps over time you stopped noticing them. Or perhaps you grew frustrated, angry that they slowed down, that they changed shape, that they hurt. But listen closely now. They still belong to you, and they still deserve care. You still deserve care, not because you need to look younger, not because you must prove strength, but because attention, true, quiet, loving attention, is a form of reverence, of respect. Your body, in all its seasons, is worthy of that love. So tonight I invite you to sit just 5 minutes. Take a little oil in your hands. Let it warm. Breathe gently. Touch your legs, not as a problem to fix, but as a companion to honor. Feel the quiet rise inside you, the stillness, the return. And perhaps as you do, you'll notice something more subtle than relief. You'll notice that you've come home to yourself. Walk gently, walk with love, and never forget this body, even now, is listening.